There's probably a few of you watching right now that are thinking about moving to Happy Valley, Oregon. In this video, I want to show you where you should live in Happy Valley. I'm going to talk about things like crime and safety, schools, real estate, even talk a little bit about walkability, even though that's not a huge thing in the suburbs. Or maybe you're not super familiar with Happy Valley and you're just looking for a gem of a suburb in the Portland metropolitan area. This is personally one of my favorite suburbs. I think it is one of the best places to live in the Portland metropolitan area. Now I want to tell you where you should live in Happy Valley. Let's go. All right, real quick, if you're not familiar, where is Happy Valley? It's down here southeast of Portland. Take a look at the boundaries of the city real quick, and it's a funny one, definitely. You've probably never seen one like this before, and I wanted to point this out because there is a reason why these boundaries look like this. Here's a GIS map, if that's a little bit easier for you to look at. It's because Happy Valley has been growing and has been annexing a lot of the surrounding area. You can kind of see on this map right here, going to the east and to the north and even to the south, you've got a lot of rural. A lot of the stuff that they've annexed is unincorporated area. So this is a growing area. Where I want to start with first is schools. That's the reason why a lot of people are moving to Happy Valley. So there's two high schools here. Clackamas High School, which was built just over 20 years ago, so it's a relatively new school in the orange. The blue is Adrian C. Nelson High School, which was built just about a couple of years ago. Both very highly rated. I think Clackamas is slightly higher. I want to show you, if you're going to be living in Happy Valley, I want to zoom in a little bit further. So the boundaries, again, you can sort of use 205, I-205 as your westernmost boundary. This road right here, Sunnyside Road, this is a road that most people are going to be familiar with. Most people are going to be traveling in and out of Happy Valley through Sunnyside, with the exception of if you live up here around what's called Mount Scott. Some people may be accessing I-205 right over here, as opposed to everybody else hopping on 205 to get where they want to go from right here. So this area does tend to be a little bit congested, but as far as schools go, they're both going to be on the south side. There's Clackamas High School. Adrian C. Nelson is right over here. They're both going to be on the south side of Sunnyside. I'll take you right back to the boundaries again. Now, the Happy Valley boundaries actually go beyond this blue right here, which represents Adrian C. Nelson. So one thing to keep in mind, if you're moving to Happy Valley for the schools, it's not going to matter too much, in my opinion, if we're talking about Clackamas or the new high school, Adrian C. Nelson. Both very highly rated. So when it comes to schools, a lot of people, like I mentioned, they move to Happy Valley just for the schools. But one thing that you want to potentially watch out for, this little corner up here, this northeastern corner, is actually going to be in the Centennial School District, which is not rated nearly as high as these two schools, Clackamas and Adrian C. Nelson. So not going to matter too much if you're moving to Happy Valley. If you're moving there for the schools, you might dig in a little bit more to the middle schools or the primary schools, and I can help you with that data too if you really want to dig into those. But for as far as the high school goes, and for the most part, all the schools are going to be rated very highly. And Adrian C. Nelson is just right here, kind of down in this southwestern corner, and Clackamas right over here, closer to 205. Now, some of that's going to tie into safety. Now, if you've heard me talk about this stuff before, I'm not a big fan of these heat maps. And just the reason being because at a glance, you see some red or some orange in here, which indicates higher crime. But it doesn't indicate that it's high crime, just simply that it's higher than some of the rest of the surrounding area. So this is a very low crime area in general. Some of this kind of higher crime is right around that 205 that I just showed you on the map. Now, another thing to consider when talking about crime is we are right on the border between Clackamas and Multnomah County. That's what this red line is right here. So to the north is Multnomah County, to the south is Clackamas County. Overall, in general, as far as crime goes, we just looked at that heat map. Again, Happy Valley is really not going to vary too much, with maybe a little bit of an exception over here. I'll talk a little bit more about over here in just a moment. But one thing that I have heard from people, I've heard some complaints in the past, not so much recently, but in the past year or two, is the policing. So if you're north of this red line, you're talking about Portland Police. South of the red line, you have Happy Valley Police, as well as Clackamas County Sheriff's, which they have an office just right down here, right by 205. So there's typically a pretty high congestion of police presence around this area. And police response time is very quick. You're usually talking about minutes for really just about anything. And I mean anything, like maybe, the old-fashioned firefighter, policeman maybe saving a cat out of a tree type of thing. Like, there's no low priority like we've seen in Portland in the past. In the past, people have made calls to Portland police, and the police have told them, hey, if this isn't a certain level of priority, we're not going to be able to make it out for hours, sometimes at all. So that is something to consider as well. You're going to encounter things being a little bit different north of this red line. And then also in this area, I grew up not too far away from here. This area was actually known kind of as Felony Flats. I don't know how fair that label was, but most people knew this area as Felony Flats over to the where you see 92nd right here and west of I-205. So you do have some proximity to some things that maybe you might want to stay away from if you're really, really looking for safety, but overall it's going to be very, very safe. Now, I mentioned walkability. Walkability isn't a reason that people typically move to the suburbs, but just about everybody wants to be walkable to some things if they can be. A lot of people that are moving to Happy Valley are families, people that have little kids. You might be out, you might have a baby that you walk around in a stroller. And sometimes it's nice to be able to walk somewhere that you can go grab a cup of coffee. There are some places like that in Happy Valley. Maybe about 5 of them or so. I'll show them to you real quick here. So Sunnyside, where it meets 205, you have a strip mall right here just to the north. And one thing I would say too, one thing that we hear is that people don't want a bunch of chains. There is a fair amount of local businesses, mom and pop. It's not just a bunch of chains. You see a Chick-fil-A right there. You don't have very many Chick-fil-A's actually in Oregon. But that line is always long when I drive by. Over here is also the Clackamas Town Center, as well as the Clackamas Promenade. So you have a bunch of shopping right in this area, just on the other side of I-205. Not exactly going to be walkable, but something to point out if for some reason you do want to be close to shopping. There's also a Costco down here as well. Your next place that's going to be walkable is a little strip mall that's anchored by a Safeway. This, for the most part, is all pretty much residential single-family homes. There are some condos and apartments in Happy Valley. They do tend to be over this way as opposed to further east. Further east is where you're going to find a lot more of the new development. You've got the Happy Valley Station food carts. You've got a strip mall just on the other side of the road there with a grocery outlet if you want some budget groceries. And then a little bit on the other side as well. A lot of this commercial stuff is newer, and especially if you go out east. So some people like the new stuff, some people don't. Some people like things that are a little bit older, maybe that have some sort of charm to them. So just know that Happy Valley is going to be like one of those newer places that have a lot of new things, strip malls, things that aren't quite as charming, but there are a lot of options. Just beyond that, just down the road, got a New Seasons with another strip mall with a handful of places to eat, to shop, gyms, hair salons, things like that. And then finally out east, you have another very large strip mall. That there's still some development going on right now, anchored by a Fred Meyer. I mentioned there is a fair amount of local businesses, mom and pops. Willamette Valley Vineyards is a very cool place. It's actually on our list, a short list of places to get married. Their primary location is right off of I-5, closer to Salem. So all of these strip malls are going to have at least some residential around them that's going to make them somewhat walkable. Now, you won't hear walkable too much when you're looking at homes for sale online. In fact, we're not supposed to use that term. And the reason being is because it discriminates against people that have disabilities. Walkable, that means something that's different for everybody. That's something that's very subjective. So it's hard to tell somebody that's something that's actually walkable because it will depend on the person. But speaking to you broadly as a YouTube audience, we can talk about what's walkable. The biggest thing I would point out, if you want to be semi-walkable, in Happy Valley, you'll see this from some of the footage that I'll show you here, but from a map, you're not going to be able to infer this. There's quite a bit of elevation. We'll get that to the elevation a little bit more with the parks here in just a moment, but especially when you go north of Sunnyside. It's going to be a little bit more flat south of Sunnyside. So if you're looking for a flat lot, some flat land, you like to do a lot of walking, you might stay south of Sunnyside. North of Sunnyside, you're going to find a lot more sloping. A lot of the homes that are north of Sunnyside are going to sit up on a hill. Oftentimes they're on stilts. Sometimes people don't like stilts. The lots tend to be smaller. Houses tend to be big though. Lots of 3-story houses. But I point this out because these hills are steep, and for a lot of people, you're probably not going to be walking too far if you are on one of these hills. So, for example, if you're somewhere around this new season's over here, if you're in one of these houses over here, you're probably not walking more than a couple blocks because it's so steep. Some people might, but for like the mom pushing the baby down the stroller, it might be tough to go more than a few blocks. But you do have some walkability options. Now, on the note of parks and trails, because Happy Valley has just about as many as any place in the Portland metropolitan area. You'll see some things here on the map. Mount Talbot, Scouters Mountain. You see West Mount Scott. You don't see Mount Scott, but Mount Scott is an area right here. These are really more like big hills. Elevation, we're talking about maybe like 1,000 feet or something like that. But if you're into parks, jogging, just nature parks, things like that, if you want to have a very wooded area, lots of mature trees, things like that, pretty much going to be surrounded by these things regardless of where you're at in Happy Valley. If I could pick one, I do really like Scouters Mountain. If you're an outdoorsy person, it does have sort of an isolated feel. It does feel like you're kind of outside of the city. Oftentimes you'll see deer when you're up there. And I'll get into the real estate market. I am a real estate broker, so that's my area of expertise. But I'll get into the real estate market towards the end of this video. There is a lot of new construction going on around this area as well. So if you're looking for new construction around something very wooded, that might be good for you. One of the complaints about new construction is they always clear cut all the trees. So you've got these big new developments, but you don't have any trees, at least in the backyard. With Scouters Mountain, at least you have the surrounding wooded area that gives you a little bit more of a feel that you're not totally like in an urban, suburban, like new development. As far as healthcare goes, there are quite a few healthcare options in Happy Valley. There is a general hospital, a Kaiser Permanente. I've been there in the past. Shown up in the ER room a few times as a child. Nothing big, just like broken bones, stitches, things like that. Do also have an Adventist, a Providence, and there's a handful of clinics up and down Sunnyside. So you do have a lot of healthcare options. If you're interested in public transit, there are quite a few bus stops. They're mostly going to be closer towards the west side, getting towards I-205, and then there is a transit center at the Clackamas Town Center. So if you want public transportation, want to be walkable to that stuff, you definitely want to be closer to I-205 as opposed to the further out east you get, fewer options you're going to have. Now, as far as the real estate goes, like I mentioned, I am a licensed real estate broker in the state of Oregon and Washington. I know Happy Valley well. Like I mentioned, I grew up near it. So what is there to know about the real estate market in Happy Valley? Well, Happy Valley was incorporated in the 1960s. And as far as pricing goes, you're not going to find too much variation. Like I mentioned, a lot of the growth is heading due east. So a lot of the homes that were initially developed here are going to be developed closer to I-205. A lot of those homes were developed in the 90s. So those homes are going to be a little bit smaller, going to be a little bit older on average. So real estate kind of just in general, maybe going to be a little bit cheaper the closer you are to 205, where you've got a lot of new construction going on right now, a lot of larger homes in Happy Valley. I mentioned Scouters Mountain, you can see right here. This right here is some of that new construction right here. And I'm not sure exactly what phase they are in. There's actually multiple developments, but you're going to have new homes going in here for at least the next couple of years. I think maybe 3, 4, 5 years. So also, if you're looking for something that's going to be a good investment, anytime there is growth going on around you, it's called the principle of progression. That will increase the value of your real estate. I know it can be kind of annoying to be around construction. I've done it myself before, both in single family and in a condo. it's usually not maybe as bad as you think, especially the way homes are insulated these days. It's probably not as noisy as you think. The way they build these subdivisions, as you can kind of see like from the map here or from some of the aerial footage, they don't just put or they don't allow somebody to buy a lot and build a home just randomly in the middle. They do it in phases, and so it's not the case that you would typically have a home being built from the ground up next to you. If you buy a new construction home, the homes next to you are either also going to be finished or they will be very close to completion. So a lot of the noise and stuff will come from like down the street or nearby. It's something to consider if you're looking for something new and something that's going to appreciate well. Happy Valley also was the home of Street of Dreams 4 years ago in 2021. There are quite a few larger estate-style homes, homes that are on larger lots as well. There are also quite a few new townhomes going in. Being a realtor, I'm not too familiar with rentals in the state of Oregon. Realtors don't broker rentals, so we don't quite have our fingers on the pulse of the rental market. If you are looking for a rental, a lot of those are going to be closer towards I-205. And for those of you that are thinking about buying a home, I'm a licensed broker in the state of Oregon and Washington. We have helped dozens of people every single year relocate from outside of the state of Oregon, hence the name Oregon Relocation Team. You can call, text, email. You can hit that QR code. If you're watching from TV, that'll take you to our website. Give me a thumbs up or a like. If this video helped you, feel free to comment. And like I said, make sure and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Until next time, take care, everyone.